There's 3 very comfortable seats in the front here, if you want to sit in a nice fluffy chair. It's too loud. Hi everyone, welcome to Frontend Meetup. This is our last meetup for the summer. So we're going to learn all about the future of front-end. Some announcements first. I have stickers for people that ask good questions during our panel session. And Magdalena will start with her presentation on the state of front-end development. Please give her your utmost attention. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me? Is this good? I have a microphone here, but is it? Okay. Okay. Thank you so much for coming in such a large number to this last meetup of the season. Last meetup of the season means that we're going to have a break during the summer, and that we'll probably continue with the meetups either in September or October before webcam. So just keep posted on the date of the next meetup. So concerning webcam, don't forget that early bid tickets end July 15th. And also, you still have time to give a talk on the front-end meetup in the fall before webcam, and then you'll have a chance to get a free ticket to webcam. So I think that's a good opportunity. Today, I will be talking about the state of front-end development, just general state of front-end development in 2018. I hope that you will be contributors to this discussion at the panel. We will have our panelists, and you will be able to ask questions, whatever concerns you about front-end development. I am trying this new thing, so on Slido.com, there is you can put in the event code and then ask questions, and then we can upvote or downvote your questions, and later on during the panel we will see the upvoted questions, and we can ask them directly to the panelists without you raising your hand, or just it will be a very digital way of asking questions. So if you could set this up, anybody, just to let me know that this thing works at all. So the event code is 4886. It does? Okay, cool. So yeah, just during the presentation, just ask your questions, whatever comes to mind, and then we'll review it later and see what kind of questions you have. Okay, cool. So the questions that I'm going to be answering today, that I'm going to try to answer, at least I will start the conversation about, are some of these questions. So who is a front-end developer in 2018? Who can call themselves front-end developers, and what kind of skills does that person need to have? How has front-end development changed over the course of the last year? So we know that front-end development is changing rapidly, and in the last 5 years, there has been a lot of change, and in the last year as well. What do we need to know or plan to learn in the next year? So we're going to talk about some trends and some technologies that you need to look out for, and maybe prepare yourself already to start learning them. And in the end, a big topic that I'm going to cover is, what do we need to do to be a better community of developers? So Frontend ZG is a local community of front-end developers that has its ups and downs. Today is an up because all of you who are here. But I would like all of you to think about how you can make this community better, or maybe even if you have any suggestions how I can, as the leader of the front-end group, make this community better and more efficient. So the first topic is something that has been bothering me a lot in the last year. It's purely the scope of front-end development. The scope of front-end development has changed a lot, and I don't think anybody could disagree with that. We started with something that was traditional front-end. It was coding for the web. That was traditional front-end. That was the scope of it. That's where we started. But today, the technologies that we used on the web front end have branched into all these different fields. Mobile apps, games, desktop apps, Internet of Things. They estimate that there will be 50 billion things, connected things, by 2020. And we have the knowledge and the technology to be a part of that revolution. So we are using the same technologies that we used to use on the web and we are still using to build technology on other platforms. So with this change, I was struggling with trying to define even this community, trying to define who my target audience is, because I don't really know anymore what interests you. Like, do drones interest you? Should we talk about drones? Should we talk about JavaScript on the server side? Is that even front end? Could that be called front end just because it's JavaScript? And especially because in the last 6 months, I've been using web technology to work on mobile apps. So I'm not in this traditional front end field anymore. So I can see the diversity in the community. When we talk about diversity in the community, us front-end developers also are having a little bit of an identity crisis because we have different names for what we're doing today. Some people call themselves front-end developers. Some are front-end designers if they're only using HTML and CSS. Some people would rather be really good at JavaScript and use their engineering skills. And I don't even know what people are calling themselves today, and that is within the front-end scope. So I don't even know if this is important that we label ourselves this or that. We shouldn't have this divide between different front-end developers. But in some cases, it is important. Like employers, if they run an ad for a job posting and they say they're looking for a front-end developer, they could get somebody that is really good at HTML and CSS and not so good at JavaScript. They could get somebody that is like doing Angular 2 but never really dove into the CSS basics. And so it is important that we know how to define certain roles within the front-end community. I also see among front-end developers this big divide between HTML and CSS people and that are doing WordPress, that are doing websites, and the people that are diving into JavaScript and applications. And I have also struggled with this dichotomy of roles within the front end. So back in 2016, I was a pretty miserable front-end developer. Not that I was bad at my job, I was just very unhappy. I was doing these awesome projects, they were really good. I was doing websites. But everybody around me was talking about the new trends in JavaScript and everything that they're doing with applications. And so I forced myself to find out these things and force myself into this application front-end developer role. And I have to say I'm much happier today because of different reasons. So if you're doing websites, they take you less seriously than if you're doing applications, both the employers and your coworkers. I also have much more structure today. I have a mentor, which when I was doing just WordPress sites, I was often alone on one project. I was doing the whole project myself. And when I'm doing application front end, I usually have a better support net, I would say, because those projects are more taken more seriously. Now, I am all for people who do not want to dive into JavaScript and want to be experts in HTML and CSS, I'm all for it. I think I was doing something that was much harder in 2016. It was much more improvisation. It was much more, I wouldn't say creative, but it was really hard because now on applications, logic is more clear. And so I think that HTML and CSS people are awesome, and that no kind of discrimination should be there. Now, I found this graph. It's really hard to see, but I'll just explain it quickly. So this is like a general, this is like a tutorial how to be a front-end developer in 2018, a modern front-end developer. So you learn the basics, right? The HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then you get deeper. So this is like a junior here, and then you branch out. And you can do CSS stuff, which is, you know, all kinds of things. And JavaScript really branched out. Like you have TypeScript, you have ES6, you have NPMs, you have testing here. So JavaScript has become a really serious thing, serious language. And also, in the end, if you want to, right, you have CSS, SVG, JavaScript, and then you get into all these design patterns and all this computer science here. Or you can do more things with CSS. And with SVG, the author proposes that you learn D3. Like that is one of the main things that you should do. Now, after all of this, we've seen the current state of front-end development. I also want to talk about the trends, what we have in sight for 2019 and beyond. As you can see, the most popular languages on GitHub, JavaScript is by far the #1. So people are committing JavaScript all day long, and it's not going away. It's very strong still. One of the things that I've listed here are things about the trends that I feel like I totally see it. I totally see it being in the future of front-end development. I feel like JavaScript has matured to the point where we're not trying to catch up with it anymore, but we're trying to just consolidate the technology and standards. We're trying to get on the same page when it comes to front-end. I don't see React or Vue or Angular going away anytime soon. I think the frameworks are, each of them have their own pluses and minuses, and I think each of them have some kind of an audience or a group of developers that really like them for different reasons. I do think that there's going to be more artificial intelligence on the web and everywhere else. We've seen like web shops that are already using machine learning and intelligence to sell you things. Node.js and full stack JS, again, JavaScript has branched into backend, and I see a lot of potential there. And when it comes to GraphQL or JSON API, I think everybody in front end they just want better APIs to hook up to, and I think that's also going to be very popular in the future. These are some things that I'm not sure about. I would love them to be big in the future, but I'm not sure what's going to happen. Progressive web apps, everybody's saying if this year it catches up, then it's going to be great. If it doesn't, then nobody knows. WebAssembly is something very new. People still don't think, I don't think they know what to do with WebAssembly, but it has a lot of opportunity. React Native is a platform I work on, so I really, really hope it catches on. I really hope that it's going to be big. But again, I don't know. Maybe progressive web apps will win this race. Or maybe they will continue living next to each other. Static site generators, we've actually had a talk on Deco last year, and I've seen a lot of hype about it. Again, I don't know how useful it is for many people. And TypeScript seems to be everywhere nowadays. Iconic has has adopted TypeScript as their main language, so I think it's not going away anytime soon. Okay, and the last topic I want to talk about is the community. Community as in front-end developer community, but also this local community. So when it comes to web developers, this is for the US, of course. This is for the US. I'm not saying this is not for Croatia or for Europe. This is for the US, but they have the kind of the best statistics, so I got this. Projected growth is pretty well for us, right? Web developers, 15%, compared to all occupations, which are only 7. So we are going to have, I think, a lot of work to do in the future. Also, the 15% is more than the projected people coming into the job market. So that means that there's going to be a shortage. There's definitely going to be a shortage, and we feel it already. But this is something we can be optimistic about, but also we should help those who are coming into this field, which they will, because if a field has a shortage of employees, that means that people from other fields we're going to try to get into it. And I think we should be very supportive of those people who are just starting out. This is from actually the CEO of Degordian. Maybe you saw it. He made a survey about developer salaries in 2017. And the closest thing, it's very hard to see, I know. The closest thing I could find is like JavaScript technology. That was there wasn't no front-end developer. There was JavaScript. Okay, I'm working with JavaScript, and as a junior, 5,000 to 600 kunas, right? And this is supposedly even given that if you're like working for foreign people, if you're remote, if you're, I don't know. Like I don't think this is like a salary for somebody that is working for an American company and they're just gonna get less than like $1,000. I think this is like if you're working for Croatian companies. So this is like the median, which is actually pretty good. It's a little bit over the average for people in Zagreb that they get salaries. And as you move on, and you're like a middle developer, you're just a in-house developer, you can get up to more than 15,000 if you're really lucky. 3% of us, of you guys, I guess, have more than 15,000 kuna, which is pretty good. And I think this is all above average for Croatian salary in Zagreb. Now, for this local community, I just want to review what we've done in the last year. So the first column are the topics that we discussed at front-end meetups, and the two rest are the topics that front-end meetups in our like neighborhood in Europe. Is that okay? Steve made that research. So in Europe, what they talked about. Now, what I see here is that okay, accessibility, we got that, and then we talked about a lot of, I feel like, website topics, and I would like to see more of these ES6 JavaScript, WebSockets, all those cool things, you know, that are just arriving, because I mean, there is a question, should we limit this front-end meetup to only web technologies and just deal with websites, or should we expand it to a broader front-end definition, which I think we should. Although there are meetups in Zagreb that fulfill that role. There's just Zagreb, there's meetups in Zagreb that fulfill this role, talking about JavaScript, talking about all these things, but that doesn't mean that we cannot have kind of a conglomerate of these topics here as well. Okay, thank you so much for listening. That's it for me.
So we have a couple people that are panelists. If you could join me up here if you're a panelist, that would be great. Thanks. I'm going to take that one from you, if that's okay.
This one?
Give me Oh, you turned down here.
On the mic. So you should keep one mic and just.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep this one, but no, this is too loud. That's my comment. You turn it down.
Just put it aside.
Okay. Everyone can hear me, right? Cool. So please go to slido.com, and then the event code is 4886. And you can ask us all sorts of questions. But first we'll introduce our panelists so we can find out who they are, which company they're with, and then maybe just like one sentence about how they're involved with front-end development or JavaScript technologies. So who are you? Not too
Okay.
close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Magdalena Maglicic. I work here at Five as a React Native developer.
Hi, my name is Čurić. I am currently a freelance web developer. What else do I need to say?
What technologies
What do I use? I use everything front-end related, and I mostly focus on performance and keeping stuff fast. Yeah, that's it.
Hi, I'm Damir Brekalo, and I'm a front-end tech lead, if I'm not mistaken, at Trikoder.
Hi, I'm Andrei Zvonimir Crnković. I'm primarily a React developer at Infinum, but I also like working with Backbone and related front frameworks.
Okay, so the first question I have is please turn the AC on, which is not a question. But the AC is on, it's just not very good. Yeah. So I guess the first thing I should say is we are looking for organizers, so please tell us, if you think we're doing a great job, you can be a part of this success. And on the other hand, if you think we're doing a terrible job, please help us. So yes. But outside of that, so I guess the first question I can ask, because there's not very many right now on Slido, so please go to Slido and ask questions. So I think firstly, I just want to say those salaries are way underpaid, in my opinion, so that'll be the first thing. But the second thing I want to say is, do you think that JavaScript will continue to fragment, or do you think that it will come back together and there will be like a very obvious workflow? Because we've had many new libraries coming out with JavaScript. There's all sorts of different workflows you can set up, all sorts of different tools you can use for, I mean, even for CSS, there's like 4 or 5 different libraries you're going to use or build pipelines you're going to use. So is that going to come back together, or are we going to see even more fragmentation? So.
I think that in the next year or two, there's still going to be some fragmentation. I mean, people are saying that it's the same stack, like it's the same technology stack, and maybe it will merge into one simpler system. But I don't think that's going to happen in the next year or so, because I think there's still too much experimenting with what JavaScript can do on different platforms. So yeah, I think that eventually yes, but not too soon.
Okay, I share the same opinion as Magdalena. What I think that, not that I think that what is currently already happening is that more and more work will be put into making interop possible. So currently there are a number of projects that promote better cooperation between different tools. For instance, Browsers List is getting huge traction recently. You have guys from Parcel and Rollup and Webpack working together on making some sort of standard. You have Jason Miller, who did Preact, who is currently working on a proof of concept library which can take any sort of component, be that React, Vue, web component or whatever, and spit out something useful. Because the current landscape is everything is just data flow. Like you have one set of Legos and you need something on the other side, and you have like all these tools in the middle. What we need is APIs and interop, and this is what's happening at the moment. We're not close yet. There will still be some infighting. There will be a lot of Twitter drama, but yeah, we're getting there.
I think the things are still going to be fragmented, actually, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Even the other languages also have this a problem, if we even can call it a problem, and I think it's okay, basically. We are going to use 3 or 4 frameworks for client-side stuff. It would be great if we can use the same frameworks on the server side, and maybe we'll settle on one build tool, or 2 or 3, but basically, fragmentation is not going away, definitely. But we have tools to handle that. Basically, if you're a team, stick to one technology you know, understand it well, and use it. And you don't have to worry if some other team is using something else. That's basically it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Damir. I think that fragmentation is good. It's a positive thing, especially because it promotes thinking outside of the box, especially talking about Parcel and Webpack. Fragmentation allows us to view the problems from different angles and see different solutions, and allow the problem to crystallize the solution. Stacks appear today, so we have like React and Webpack, which they work great together, and then we have Angular, which works also amazingly well. Ember is also here, and Vue.js, and all of those frameworks solve different kind of problems on different kind of ways. And I think we shouldn't force a single solution for every problem, because what will happen, we'll have something like Rails, and nobody will want to work on that.
So you mentioned a couple different frameworks there. Chuck asked about Electron. Do you see it as a passing trend, or is it here to stay?
I hope it's a passing trend. I don't like Electron. I think that native apps have their place on our laptops and on our phones, and we should not pursue Electron anymore. It's bloated, it's huge, it's slow, it's making my laptop work harder than it should for a simple editor. Or
do you have Slack installed?
Unfortunately, yes.
Electron, thoughts?
I think the idea that upon which the Electron is built, that we use the web technologies to make something that works on all types of devices and screens, and it is actually good. So I'm also not fond of Electron, but if somebody can make something that's based on the same principles but works better, I'm all for it.
Let's call it Java.
No. No.
Yeah, so I'm also a huge Electron lover, and it has its plus sides and its downsides. The biggest plus side is that you get to develop stuff without you have everything packaged in a single app. No longer do you need, oh, but you need Java 8 installed. Oh, but you need that Qt library installed. Oh, but you need that Microsoft UI kit, Visual Studio redistributable something. But hopefully it will go away. I don't know if you guys heard, but the guys, I think Sean Larkin recently posted that they at Microsoft they managed to make a bundler that compiles both the React Native bridge and React Native down into native code for every platform. So UWP, Cocoa, iOS, everything, and they are porting Skype and Microsoft Office to it. And for Win32 platforms, you get to use it, but you get it in an Electron wrapper. So this is kind of, I don't know, graceful degradation. I don't know, people love the React workflow. And I think that people are flocking to Electron because of the ease of distribution, ease of development, and ease of maintenance, which is something that native apps can't really provide.
Well, I mean, besides Electron, we have the React Native, which is also like you're using web technologies to build native Android and iOS apps. So I'm highly biased. I do not like the idea of doing something just because you can. I think that a lot of thought has to go into it, and if Electron and these other bridge technologies get better. They have to be better when it comes to performance. They just have to do better if they're gonna sustain in the market. If not, people are just gonna, after some time, they're just gonna realize that it's not a good technology. It's just a waste of time, and that we just did something because we could, not because it made sense.
So Airbnb just recently abandoned React Native, and the core of their argument was essentially, when we hire an engineer, they have to be an expert on 3 systems. They have to be an expert on React Native, they have to be an expert on iOS native, and they have to be an expert on Android native. So I actually think that we will see people abandoning technologies like that are cross-compiling. I mean, there's been tons of different types of languages that are saying, oh yeah, just write it once and it's going to be available everywhere. And it doesn't really work that way. So I guess that's my opinion on it. Sorry. So let's say I'm a new developer. Where should I jump in? What should I start learning first?
To be a front-end developer?
Yeah, because you know, there's a lot of different types of front-end developer now. Should I start with HTML, CSS? Or should I do something different?
I mean, everybody's going to tell you to start from the basics and learn JavaScript, plain JavaScript. Don't get into jQuery or React right away. Be really good at HTML before you start using Angular or whatever. So I'm still traditional in that way, where I started front-end development with just experiment. I actually started PHP first. I thought that was the thing. So I don't know. I just experimented a lot, but I had the opportunity to experiment because I was still a student. I wasn't doing anything else, and I was just doing free projects and just learning on the way. So I don't know how other people do it, and front-end development for me just came by accident. I just had some of this knowledge, and I saw a field where it can be implemented. So experiment, and don't think that you know little. I mean, everybody's learning, even we that are in the industry for a long time, we are learning all the time, and nobody should feel like they don't know enough about what we're doing here.
Was the question for web development in general or front-end development?
Let's say front-end development.
Let's say front-end development.
Yeah. Since front-end meetups. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a bit old-fashioned as well, and I'd say stick to the basics. Learn what is actually displayed in the browser and how you can actually interact with that in the shortest way possible, because currently there's so many layers of abstraction and so many choices to learn from, and the landscape is changing all the time. It's easy to get lost when you start, but it's also very easy to get shoehorned into a single environment where then you can't see people. A lot of people like to start with React recently, and then I see some pretty bad code being written if a person doesn't want to evolve past that. So my opinion is, which is not shared by many, I think, is like start with the basics and think for yourself. Don't follow trends.
I'm going to say something unpopular. Start with jQuery. Really. It's the masterpiece of API design. If you're interested in programming, you don't have to use it today. Maybe it's not current. You're not going to use it on your new project. But you're going to learn how to design an API that's really easy to consume, easy to understand. That's really the. Lots of people go to the basics, take the first book, and write some weird stuff that's actually not usable. If you go with if you start with HTML, open up a notebook, notepad, a simple text editor, paste in some text inside, open that same takes the file in browser, look how it looks without any HTML tags, start adding headings, start adding paragraphs, look how it looks without CSS. Actually, we are privileged in a way that we don't have to set up any build tools. Actually, we can just make a text file and open it in a browser. Imagine if you're doing mobile development. You have to pay subscriptions, you have to have specific computers, you have to have Xcode or something. If you're doing iOS, it's easy to start with frontend. There are lots of great books, there are lots of great video tutorials, and actually it is really easy to start. Everything after that, it's hard. Yeah.
There's a saying in Silicon Valley, 0 to 1. Going from 0 to 1 rather than 0 to 10. 0 to 1 is easy.
Yep.
I'm going to get even more unpopular here. So I shared all of your opinions throughout my career, but since I started teaching at JavaScript Academy at Infinum, I've noticed that starting from the basics produces a lot of unhappy students because they see everybody doing React, they see everybody doing Angular, and they want to do it also. And now I think that kind of gatekeeping isn't good. So start with whatever you want. You literally can't go wrong, but stick with it until you understand it. I have a wonderful example of a colleague who came from JavaScript Academy at Infinum. He started with React, he mastered it in a month and a half, and now works with Angular without any problems. So the point here is just pick whatever. Pick jQuery, okay, fine. Start from 0, perfect. Start from React, no problem. Start from Ember, sure, but just stick to it until you understand it. That's the only way you can start your kickstart your learning.
Okay, we're going to have a lightning round starting down there. From anonymous to jQuery or not to jQuery? That is the question. Yes or no? Lightning round.
Yes.
Depends on the project. If you are building a site that has millions of users, sorry?
Yes or no? Lightning round.
Yes or no, sorry. Yes.
No.
No.
Okay. The next lightning round question is, so there's this thing called Atwood's Law, which says, any application that can be written in JavaScript will eventually be written in JavaScript. Do you agree with this law, or do you disagree?
Yeah.
Is this a lightning round?
Yeah, lightning round.
Yes.
Yes.
No, I don't want my car to run any JavaScript.
But is it inevitable?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay, lightning round. In your personal opinion, which is better, Vue, React, or Angular?
React.
Totally Vue.
React.
I cannot do this. No, I think, no. I don't know. I love React. Vue is great for beginners. Angular has its pluses, so I don't know.
Okay, we'll go back and hear some reasons why on that question. So, what did you say, Ivan? You said React, right?
Yeah.
And why is React your favorite out of those three? Because I think we talked about a month ago, and you said you really liked Vue. So did something change?
I like both of them.
Okay.
I just think that there is currently a much larger job market for React, and what everyone is doing this for, except for a hobby, is to work in that technology and get paid for it. Currently there's like probably 20 to 1 job offerings, if it's not more, for React, and basically if you understand one framework, it's very easy to move on to the next one. So start with one you like, get good in the one that you'll get employed with, and then do whatever.
I would choose Vue because the docs are great, the documentation is really great. I've seen junior developers really read up on docs and start producing something very quickly. which is always a plus. It works great server-side. And basically that's it. Like colleagues said, React is also okay. There's really not too much difference between them. But Vue, in my experience, forces there are fewer abstractions in Vue. Basically, it's really easy to read. There's a template stuff up in the tags. There's a script. There's a style. Basically, it's all already covered. You just write it in. There's even the build tools are given actually. So definitely Vue.
I would pick React because it's incredibly easy to get started. So it has a low barrier of entry, which is great for smaller projects, which is terrible for huge projects. I would never pick it for a project that has a tendency to grow and to become like an enterprise solution or something like that. I would always go with Angular there. But if you need a small site, a small application, maybe just a few pages, screens, I think React is great because it eliminates the bike shed basically.
Okay, this is another question from Anonymous. Anonymous has been asking us a lot of questions. Is WebAssembly the end of JavaScript? So first, what is WebAssembly? I don't know what that is.
So I don't know a lot about WebAssembly, but what I do know is that it compiles native code like C or I think C#, Rust also, to a code that the browser understands, which is not JavaScript. I don't think that's the death of JavaScript because it will never be as easy to interact with DOM as it is with JavaScript. What will happen though is a lot of a lot of intensive tasks will move to WebAssembly. So for instance, huge iterations or maybe even some kind of a DRMs, API calls should move to WebAssembly.
What was the question again?
Will WebAssembly be the end of JavaScript?
No, definitely no. Not. There's actually not that much wrong with JavaScript. So some guys who write other languages, okay, are going to be able to put something on the web also, but in the end, like in the Airbnb example, someone's going to have to debug that code that actually runs in the browser. So JavaScript is here to stay, definitely.
Yeah, I agree with that. JavaScript is currently everywhere. It works just fine in the browser. It can be easily optimized, and it's easy to interact with the DOM. As for WebAssembly, I think it's also here to stay. I think that Autodesk recently ported like 30 years of C code from AutoCAD into WebAssembly, and now you have AutoCAD running in the browser. So this is not something that you would write in JavaScript from the ground up. So is it the end of JavaScript? No, maybe. Maybe Dart will come back from the ashes. I don't know.
No, I don't think JavaScript is going away just because WebAssembly is here. I think WebAssembly is fixing some of JavaScript's pain points, especially concerning performance in the browser. And I think that's going to be a great thing. I'm really, really looking forward to what WebAssembly will add to JavaScript.
So one thing we haven't touched on is this whole concept of server-side rendering. It's becoming much more popular. So where do we draw the line as to who a front-end developer is? Is it just the objects that you see? Does that make you a front-end developer? Or is there something more to it? We have Node that kind of started to blur the line about who is front-end because now we have JavaScript running on the server. So I think server-side rendering will become more popular. So what is front-end? Is someone who writes that code going to be a front-end developer, even though it's running on the server?
Well, I had thought about it a lot because I had to prepare this presentation, and I didn't know the answer to that question. It's very blurry, but in the end, I decided for myself that as long as you're using the same technology stack, like web technologies, HTML, CSS, JS, and using it on the client side, I would say that that's a front-end developer. JavaScript is on the back end, but that's back end. So for me, Node.js, I mean, people who are writing Node.js have a lot in common with front-end developers, and we can touch on points there. We can talk about common topics, but that's not a front-end developer.
I used to be of the opinion that a front-end developer is someone who writes code as, exclusively for the stuff that's being rendered in the browser and with browser APIs. Headless browsers also fall into this category, but I think that more and more front-end developers are being faced with the task of making their own or modifying build processes, like what to do with assets, how to manage the data flow. Like, you still aren't touching the database or the hosts or stuff like that, but you're working with assets and files that you write, but not in the browser. So Webpack, for instance, I think that it's the job of the front-end developer to know how to configure Webpack. I think that it's their job to know how to optimize SVG assets and stuff like that. Server-side rendering is a small part of it that touches a bit more on the backhand side, but even configuring build processes isn't something that actually uses any of the browser APIs. It's mostly just proprietary code. I mean, most of it is written in JavaScript, but it doesn't have much to do with the browser. So yeah, I think that the front-end development is starting to like encroach more and more on the DevOps and back-end side of things. But depends on how good of a front-end developer you want to be.
In our experience, the server-side rendering is actually not that hard. It is intimidating once you start with it, but you can actually set up a Vue application to be server-side rendered in 200 lines of code or less. What my colleague said, you're actually not doing much logic on the server when you write these server-side rendered JavaScript applications. The hard parts are still APIs, and we are not going to do APIs. APIs is still good old backend, be it in PHP or something else. There are some issues with security, but it's basically npm install and you use something. It's actually not that hard. I think that front-end developers should, at one point, if not are using already, do server-side rendering. It is actually fun. It is actually fun to see how all this React or Vue code is actually working on server side as it was working on the client side. Having that in mind, you have to be careful of the libraries you choose to pick to run server side, because lots of client code that's on GitHub and that you use on the server side has memory leaks, has stuff that is not actually being designed to run server side. So basically you have to be careful and inspect the packages you use. Yeah. But if you choose wisely, there are actually no problems and the setup is actually really simple. So use server side rendering, definitely.
I really don't have an opinion about whether front-end developers should be doing server-side rendering or not. I particularly am not very fond of server-side rendering because I had bad experiences with it, especially on huge projects, which could be mitigated with using solutions that set up server-side rendering for you, like Next.js, which works very good. Should a front-end developer learn how to do server-side rendering? Well, it's all up to you, and it depends on application. I wouldn't shoehorn server-side rendering everywhere. Maybe you don't even need it. Maybe you don't even want it. That's fine. But are you a back-end developer if you work on a server-side render application? Well, I don't think so, because it doesn't really matter where it renders. Does it render in a browser or on Node or on a phone as a React Native? It doesn't matter. When you add Express and you start adding routes, then you're a backend developer.
Even mentioned Webpack. So the question is, why does Webpack always get stuck on 64%? Any alternatives to speed up our build process? That's also from Chuck. So Yeah. So the question is, why are the build processes not fast, or should they be faster? I guess.
My Webpack is also stuck at 64%, so send help. They should be faster. Why they're not fast, I don't know. really never investigated it. So.
I have a guy in a company that pastes me some code. I put it in a Webpack and works faster. So yeah, I'm not sure how. It still is stuck at some point, but yeah.
In my opinion, all bundlers are simply like black magic anyway, so I just learned the syntax, try not to use too much stuff, and like cross my fingers and hope for the best. It usually works. If it doesn't, I start removing stuff until it works, and then I go cry in a corner somewhere.
Also, no idea. Lately, Xcode builds my projects for me, so it's also slow, though.
It is very slow. So the next question asked about how to get into open source. I know on GitHub there's I think it's every month there's like an open source day where it's just basically you can jump on any project and the tickets are tagged for you. But in my experience, it's just find a project you like or want to learn more about, and then go to their issues list and find one of the easy ones. And if they're completely untagged, you can always ask the maintainer, and they can point you in the right direction. Does anyone else have tips for how to get involved with open source software?
Well, I am terrible at it. I do not read the issues. I do not care. I don't really contribute much, but on my own. But lately, we've been having this improvement day, one day a month in our company, that we can work on anything we want. And that actually kind of forces me to look into open source projects, and I am closer to being an actual contributor now. So maybe that is one way for people that are bad at it, like I am, to start doing it during work time, right?
So join a company that
join a good company.
Yeah. Okay.
That lets you, that not forces you, but just kind of inspires you to think about things like that.
It's very easy. You quit your job, you move to Thailand, and actually, what I found that not all contributions on GitHub need to be in code. So posting responses to issues is also contributing. Posting documentation is also contributing. Fixing it is also contributing. Posting good issues with good stack traces and stuff is also contributing. And if you really want to do contribution in code, like try finding something that's not super hard, but something that annoys you. Like I think that my first open source contribution was on the Webpack docs. When you scrolled, the sidebar was position fixed, but it wasn't on its own layer. So the whole page repainted, and when you had like a doc page which was really huge, you couldn't scroll on it. So I made a pull request with something that said like sidebar sticky will change transform. Whoa, I'm an open source contributor. So yeah, find something that annoys you, try to fix it, report bugs, and update the documentation. You don't need to be like a rocket surgeon to do it.
Maybe one tip if you're working on a company, on some project of your own, even if you are not going to open source some work you do daily, try to architecture it in a way that can be open sourced. So basically, if you're doing something that can be composed of some sort of modules, and then it's always about some sort of modules, think about how those modules would actually function, what their API would be if they were open source. If at some point your company has time to actually open source stuff, you're going to be halfway there. Open source is hard, writing docs is hard, writing demos and responding to issues and It's really hard, but you can start actually tomorrow, just with small steps. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with all of you. And just one thing, don't shoot at big libraries. Don't contribute to Webpack as your first contribution. Don't try to contribute to React. The time you will need to onboard on that project is the same like when you work in a company and you're assigned a project that's like 7 years old. It's gonna take time. It's gonna take 2 or 3 months, and unless you don't have a job or you're extremely rich so you can afford not to work for 3 months and onboard on Webpack, I would skip it. Fix the issues in libraries which you use every day. So for instance, if you use a linter, maybe write a new a linter check or something like that, whatever you can. So you just get started. That's the best way of starting with open sourcing. And it's hard. It takes a lot of time, and that's fine. And if you don't want to contribute, that's fine also. You are not worth less if you don't contribute.
So we're going to wrap up now. Thank you. Let's have a round of applause for our panelists. There was one final question, which was, can you make more popcorn? And the answer is yes. So we'll do that now. Thanks for coming. So I would like everyone to put your hand in the air, though, please. Everyone put your hand up in the air. Okay? And keep your hand up if your company is hiring front-end developers. So keep your hand up if your company's hiring. So there's a lot of people back there in case you're looking for a new job. Go talk to them. As I mentioned earlier, we are looking for organizers or speakers. And you don't have to be like a senior to come and do a talk. If you're just learning something and you want to show us your experience, that's totally okay also. And so yeah, that's basically it.
I just want.
It's on now.
Is it? I just want to add a couple of things. So firstly, you noticed that we were having meetups at Degordian for the last couple of months. That's because they were kind enough to offer co-organizers and their space and their time and everything. But now we moved back to 5, and we're going to stay here for at least for a while in the fall. I also want to say that I forgot. So there's beer here. You can drink that. We'll make more popcorn. You can stay here and mingle. And I don't know. If you have any other questions, just shoot an email or contact me on Meetup. It's Frontend ZG. I mean, you probably noticed because you RSVP'd. So just send a message if you have any suggestions, any ideas, any talks you want to do. Oh, yes, and one more thing. So this is in English, as you noticed, and we're going to keep it in English because a couple of reasons. So we do have some foreign developers coming into our meetups, which is great, and not only him. Like we have a junior developer from New Zealand, and so it's exciting to think about all the opportunities that we get just having this meetup in English. Also, I've had meetups or front-end groups from other countries contacted me asking if their members can come in to our meetup and have a talk, which is great. And of course, I'm gonna say yes to them. And that's why, if anybody has a problem with the meetup being in English, if you really want to have a talk, we can have it in Croatian. It's not a big deal. It's just general, like, rule of thumb is that we're an English-speaking meetup. Also, you maybe noticed that we have streaming here. So on 5's YouTube page, you will have this video uploaded. So you can watch it again if you'd like. So that's it. Thank you.